I was in the bathroom when I heard Andrew's voice through the door, low and secretive. He was on the phone with someone, and his tone made me freeze. "She'll be gone for a whole week starting Thursday. We'll finally have the place to ourselves." A pause, then a soft laugh I'd never heard before, intimate, almost tender. "I know, baby. I've been waiting for this too. Once she's gone, we can stop pretending." My hand gripped the sink as my reflection stared back at me, pale and shocked. Andrew and I had been together for 3 years, lived together for over 2 years in this apartment that I'd inherited from my grandmother. He thought I was going to visit my parents next week, a trip I'd planned months ago. Andrew has been very supportive of this trip and always told me I needed it just to help me have some time away from home. I didn't. His voice continued through the door. "Trust me, she has no idea about us. By the time she gets back, everything will be different. We just need to stick to the plan." My heart shattered and then immediately hardened into something sharp and calculating. I flushed the toilet, washed my hands loudly, and walked out smiling like I'd heard nothing. Andrew looked startled. "Oh, you are in the washroom," he said. "Yes," I said while he quickly ended his call. "Work emergency," he said. I smiled wider and kissed his cheek. "No problem." But inside, I was already looking forward for the surprise he had for me. I wasn't going anywhere, and I was about to discover exactly who Andrew was betraying me with. My name is Jada Pierce, and I was 29 years old when I discovered the person I trusted most was destroying me from the inside. If you have ever felt that sick suspicion in your gut, that knowing that something is terribly wrong while everyone around you acts normal, that crushing realization that your reality is built on lies, then share, and subscribe to this channel because you'll understand the revenge I took. I'd grown up in this city with my grandmother after my parents moved overseas for work. Gran raised me in the rent-controlled apartment she'd lived in for 40 years. When she died 3 years ago, she left it to me, a one-bedroom in a prime neighborhood that would cost $3,000 a month on the open market, but I only paid $800 due to rent control. It was my sanctuary, my inheritance, my home. I met Andrew 6 months after Gran died. He was charming and supportive during my grief. He moved in after we'd been dating 6 months, contributing to utilities but never rent since the apartment was mine. My best friend Tessa had been in my life since college. 10 years of friendship, shared secrets, endless support. My younger sister Kelsey, a paralegal at a downtown law firm, lived across town and we talked every day. I worked as a freelance photographer, building my portfolio and client base. I thought I had built a good life. Then about 6 weeks ago, everything started to change. The strange things started with Andrew's phone. He became obsessively protective of it, taking it everywhere, even to the shower. When I asked casually why, he said he'd been getting work emails at odd hours and didn't want to miss anything important. Then I noticed Tessa acting differently around me. She'd been my closest friend for a decade, but suddenly she was distant, cutting our coffee dates short, seeming uncomfortable when Andrew was mentioned. When I asked if everything was okay, she assured me she was just stressed about work. I wanted to believe her. Then came the night I woke at 2 a.m. to find Andrew's side of the bed empty. I found him in the living room, texting someone with a smile I rarely saw anymore when he looked at me. When he noticed me, he quickly locked his phone and said he couldn't sleep. I said nothing, but I started paying attention. I noticed Tessa's perfume in our apartment one day, a distinctive scent I'd helped her choose. I found long dark hair in our bathroom that wasn't mine. I was blonde, Tessa had dark hair. Andrew said it must be from Kelsey's last visit, but my sister had short red hair. The lies were piling up. Then I found a restaurant receipt in Andrew's jacket pocket for an expensive dinner for 2 on a night he'd claimed to be working late. The evidence was mounting, but I had no proof of who he was seeing. Until I overheard that phone call, and everything crystallized. I started documenting everything quietly. I took photos of the hair, screenshots of the times Andrew was working late, but his office building was dark when I drove past. I noted when Tessa canceled plans, but later posted photos on social media at bars or restaurants during those same time slots. I felt like I was losing my mind, questioning my own perceptions. Then I overheard that phone call through the bathroom door, and everything crystallized. Andrew was cheating on me, and based on all the evidence, the perfume, the hair, Tessa's strange behavior, it was with my best friend. And they were planning something for when I'd be away. I needed proof. Solid, undeniable proof. My scheduled vacation was in 5 days, 7 days visiting my parents 4 hours away. Andrew knew about it and had even encouraged me to go, said I needed quality family time. Now I understood why he was so supportive. He wanted me gone so he could be with Tessa without hiding. I called my parents that evening and explained I needed to cancel due to a project deadline. They were disappointed but understanding. Then I called Kelsey and asked if we could meet urgently the next morning. I trusted my sister completely. I needed her help and her legal knowledge to catch Andrew and Tessa in whatever they were planning. Kelsey met me at a diner across town the next morning. I told her everything, the suspicious behavior, the lies, the overheard phone call, my suspicions about Tessa. Kelsey's face darkened with each revelation. I never liked Andrew, she admitted. There was always something off about him. And Tessa's been weird with me too lately, avoiding family gatherings. She squeezed my hand. What do you need from me? I explained my plan, pretend to go on vacation as scheduled, but actually stay in town, documenting what Andrew did when he thought I was gone. Kelsey immediately offered her apartment as a base. You can stay with me the whole week, and I can help you understand your legal rights. This is your inherited property, and if he's planning something, you need to know how to protect yourself. We spent 3 hours strategizing. Kelsey suggested installing a security camera in my apartment. You need video evidence. If Andrew is planning to move Tessa in or claim tenant rights or anything else, you need proof. I agreed. I also wanted audio to hear what they were saying. We went shopping together for a small wireless camera and voice-activated recorder. Nothing illegal, just monitoring my own property. I had 5 days to prepare for the most important performance of my life. Over the next few days, I prepared meticulously while acting completely normal around Andrew. I ordered the surveillance equipment online and had it delivered to Kelsey's address. The camera was tiny, designed to look like a phone charger plug-in, and connected to an app on my phone. The voice recorder was smaller than a USB drive. Kelsey helped me test everything at her apartment first. We practiced positioning the camera for the best angle and making sure the audio recorder's battery would last at least a week. I felt like a spy, and I hated that my own relationship had come to this. But I needed the truth. Meanwhile, I acted excited about my trip, packed my suitcase visibly, talked about seeing my parents. Andrew was attentive and sweet, which made his betrayal even more painful. 2 days before my departure, while Andrew was at work, Kelsey and I installed the surveillance equipment. We positioned the camera on a bookshelf where it looked like a normal device but had a clear view of the living room, kitchen, and front door. The voice recorder went under the couch, secured with tape. We tested everything twice. I could watch and listen from anywhere through my phone. Everything was ready. I just had to wait to see what Andrew would do when he thought I was gone. The day of my departure arrived. I packed my suitcase with real clothes and toiletries, making it look authentic. Andrew offered to drive me to the bus station. My car had been making strange noises lately, a genuine mechanical issue he'd mentioned several times, almost emphasizing that I couldn't easily come back. I accepted, hiding my suspicion behind a bright smile. At the station, Andrew hugged me tight, kissed me deeply, and told me to have a wonderful time with my family. "I'll miss you so much," he said, his eyes sincere. I almost believed him. I watched him drive away, then waited exactly 25 minutes before calling a rideshare to take me to Kelsey's apartment. My hands shook the entire drive. I'd really done it, committed to a week of surveilling my own boyfriend to catch him in betrayal. Kelsey greeted me at her door with a fierce hug. She'd set up her guest room and cleared space in her living room where we could monitor the camera feed on her large TV screen. I pulled out my phone and opened the app. There was my apartment, empty and quiet. I texted Andrew that I'd arrived safely at my parents' house. He responded immediately, "Love you, baby. Have fun." I stared at those words, wondering how long he'd been lying with such ease. Kelsey sat beside me. Now we watch and we wait. The first day was uneventful. Andrew came home from work at his usual time, ate dinner, watched TV, went to bed early. I felt ridiculous watching him do normal things. Maybe I'd overreacted? Maybe I was paranoid and jealous for no reason? Kelsey reminded me to be patient. If he was planning something, he wouldn't do it the first night. He'd make sure I was really gone and settled. She was right. Day 2 changed everything. Andrew came home at 6:30 wearing clothes I'd never seen before, expensive dark jeans and a fitted black shirt that looked brand new. He'd clearly gone shopping. He cleaned the apartment thoroughly, vacuumed every room, changed the sheets on our bed, lit candles throughout the space, and chilled a bottle of wine. My stomach turned watching him prepare. He was expecting someone. At 7:45, the doorbell rang. Andrew checked his appearance in the mirror, ran his fingers through his hair, and opened the door with a smile I used to think was just for me. Tessa walked in. My best friend of 10 years, wearing a tight red dress and heels, carrying an overnight bag. I felt like I'd been punched. Kelsey grabbed my hand as we watched Andrew pull Tessa into a deep, passionate kiss. They kissed for a long time, right there in my entryway, before Andrew closed the door and they walked toward my bedroom hand in hand. The camera couldn't see the bedroom, but I didn't need to. I'd seen enough. I sat in stunned silence, tears streaming down my face, while Kelsey held me. We watched the camera feed for 2 hours. Andrew and Tessa eventually emerged from the bedroom in comfortable clothes, his t-shirt on her, both barefoot, laughing and cooking dinner together in my kitchen like a couple who'd been together for years. They ate at my dining table, feeding each other bites, completely at ease. The intimacy was worse than the kiss. This wasn't a new affair. They'd been together long enough to have routines, inside jokes, comfort. How long had this been happening? I activated the audio recorder feed through my phone and listened through headphones. Tessa said, "I can't believe we have a whole week without worrying about her walking in." Andrew replied, "I know. It feels so good to just be us in our own space." Our space. She called it our space. Like I didn't exist. Like my home, my inheritance from my grandmother, was theirs. Later, Tessa asked, "Do you think she suspects anything?" Andrew laughed. "Not at all. She's completely clueless. I've been careful." Kelsey looked at me with fire in her eyes. "We're not just catching them. We're going to make them pay for this." I nodded, wiping my tears. The sadness was hardening into cold determination. They'd betrayed me in the worst possible way. That night, Tessa didn't leave. She stayed in my bed, with my boyfriend, in my apartment. And I planned my revenge. Day 3 brought revelations that made the betrayal even deeper. I woke up early and watched the camera feed from Kelsey's couch. Andrew and Tessa were having breakfast in my kitchen already, comfortable in their routine. Through the audio, I heard Tessa say, "Have you thought more about what we discussed? About making this permanent?" Andrew nodded seriously. "Yeah, I think after this week, we make our move. She'll be devastated, but she'll have to accept reality eventually." Make their move? What did that mean? Tessa continued, "The apartment is rent-controlled and in a prime location. My lease is up in 2 months anyway. If we can get established here, we'd save so much money compared to finding a new place together." My blood ran cold. They were planning to take my apartment. Andrew said, "The tricky part is that she inherited it, so it's in her name. But I've been living here for over 2 years. I've been researching tenant laws. Even without a formal lease or paying rent, I can claim tenant rights and make it really difficult for her to kick me out." Tessa laughed, a sound that used to comfort me. "By the time she realizes what's happening, we'll be established residents and she'll have no choice but to leave or accept us both being here." I couldn't breathe. They weren't just having an affair. They were plotting to steal my home, my inheritance, the apartment my grandmother left to me. This wasn't just betrayal. This was theft. Over the next 2 days, I listened to hours of recordings that revealed the full scope of Andrew and Tessa's relationship and their plans. They'd been seeing each other for 8 months. 8 months of lies while I suspected nothing. It started, according to Tessa's recounting, when she came over for dinner one night and felt a spark with Andrew. They'd been sneaking around ever since, meeting at hotels, at Tessa's apartment when I thought she was busy with work, even in my own home when I was out on photography shoots. The strange behavior I'd noticed 6 weeks ago coincided with when they started planning the apartment takeover scheme, not when the affair began. They'd been careful about the affair itself, but once they decided to try stealing my home, Andrew had gotten sloppy and secretive about the planning. Andrew admitted he'd stopped loving me about a year ago, but stayed because of the apartment. "Why would I give up a rent-controlled place in this neighborhood that costs me nothing?" he said casually, like I was just a free housing arrangement. "This apartment is worth a fortune. If I can establish residency and tenant rights, then even if Jada and I break up, I can stay here or even sublease it." Tessa agreed enthusiastically. "And once I move in with you, we split utilities and have an amazing place for almost nothing." They discussed their strategy in detail, and I recorded every word. Day 5 brought unexpected visitors that expanded the betrayal even further. I was watching the camera when Kelsey said, "Oh my God, is that who I think it is?" Andrew opened the door to let in 3 people, his brother, his best friend, and another couple I recognized from social gatherings. Tessa greeted them all warmly, playing hostess in my home. They'd invited people over for a dinner party in my apartment while I was supposedly visiting family. I watched in fury as Andrew gave a tour, showing off his place to his friends, acting like he owned it. Tessa cooked an elaborate meal in my kitchen, using my dishes, serving my wine. Through the audio, I heard Andrew's brother say, "I'm happy for you too. You seem really good together. It's about time you found someone who gets you." Tessa beamed. "We are good together. It just feels right, you know? Like this is how things were always supposed to be." Andrew's best friend asked, "What about Jada? When are you telling her?" Andrew shrugged casually. "When she gets back. It'll be hard, but it's time to be honest. I'm just not in love with her anymore. Haven't been for a while." They toasted to honesty and new beginnings, drinking my wine, celebrating my impending heartbreak. His friends knew. They'd known about the affair and said nothing. One friend asked, "Are you worried she'll kick you out?" Andrew smiled confidently. "I've been researching tenant laws extensively. Even without paying rent, I've lived here long enough to have rights. She can't just throw me out. I have legal protections." By day 6, I'd seen and heard enough. I had hundreds of hours of video and audio evidence documenting Andrew and Tessa's affair, their plot to take my apartment, their discussions of tenant rights and legal strategies to stay in my home, even their dinner party with friends who'd enabled the betrayal. Kelsey and I sat down to plan my revenge carefully. "What do you want to happen?" she asked. I thought carefully. "I want them exposed. I want everyone they know to see exactly who they are. I want Andrew out of my apartment immediately with no claim to tenant rights. And I want Tessa to lose everything she values most, her reputation, her image, her social standing." Kelsey smiled darkly. "I can help with all of that." We developed a detailed strategy. First, I'd return home early tomorrow, day 7, catching them together with witnesses. Second, I'd document the confrontation. Third, I'd expose them publicly to their friends, families, and colleagues. Fourth, I'd ensure Andrew left immediately with no legal claim. Kelsey pulled out legal documents she'd been preparing all evening. Since Andrew never paid rent, isn't on any lease, and you have evidence he's planning to defraud you of your property, you have every legal right to remove him immediately. These documents make it official. He signs voluntarily or faces criminal fraud charges. We prepared everything carefully. Tomorrow, the real revenge would begin. Day 7. I woke up early and watched the camera feed one last time. Andrew and Tessa were still asleep in my bed, wrapped around each other. I felt nothing but cold determination. I told Kelsey, "I'm going home now." She insisted on coming with me as a witness and backup. We drove to my apartment in silence. I'd texted Andrew that morning saying I was having such a great time with my parents that I'd extended my trip by 2 days. He'd responded enthusiastically, "That's great, baby. Enjoy the extra time with your family. Love you." The casual lies no longer hurt. They fueled my resolve. I parked down the street and watched the camera feed on my phone. At 9 a.m., Andrew and Tessa woke up. They made breakfast together, discussing what to do with their extra 2 days alone. They had no idea I was outside, watching them plan my continued betrayal. Kelsey asked, "Are you ready?" I nodded firmly. We walked to my building and quietly climbed the stairs. At my door, I unlocked it silently with my key, then suddenly burst through. Andrew and Tessa were on my couch in loungewear, and their faces went white with shock. "Jada, what are you? You're supposed to be," Andrew stammered, standing up quickly. I smiled coldly. "Surprise. I never left town. I've been watching you all week." I held up my phone showing the camera feed. Tessa stood up, panicking, her hand flying to her mouth. "This isn't what it looks like," I laughed harshly. "Really? Because it looks like you've been screwing my boyfriend in my bed all week while plotting to steal my apartment. And I have video and audio of everything." The color drained from both their faces as the reality sank in. I was holding all the cards, and they knew it. Andrew tried to recover, his voice taking on a pleading tone. "Jada, please let me explain. I was going to tell you." I cut him off sharply. "Tell me what? That you've been having an affair with my best friend for 8 months? That you only stayed with me for my rent-controlled apartment? That you researched tenant laws to figure out how to steal my home?" I heard everything, Andrew. Every conversation, every plan, every disgusting detail. Tessa started crying, reaching toward me desperately. "Jada, I'm so sorry. It just happened. We didn't mean to hurt you." "Stop," I said, my voice like ice. You meant every bit of it. You both planned this meticulously. Now let me tell you what's going to happen. Kelsey stepped forward, pulling out her phone to record everything. Andrew, you're leaving. Today. Now. You have 2 hours to pack your things and get out of Jada's apartment. Andrew's face hardened, trying to regain control. Actually, I have tenant rights. I've lived here for over 2 years. You can't just kick me out without proper notice. I know the law. I smiled, and it wasn't nice. You never paid rent. You're not on any lease. You have no written agreement. And Kelsey, my sister, is a paralegal. We've checked the law extensively. You have 0 rights here. Kelsey added, plus, we have recordings of you admitting you're trying to defraud Jada of her inherited property. That's a crime. You leave now, or we call the police and show them everything. Andrew's confident facade crumbled instantly. He looked at Tessa desperately, but she was backing toward the door, clearly wanting to escape the situation. You're not going anywhere yet, I told Tessa firmly. Sit down. Both of you. Now. They sat on my couch, looking small and trapped. I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder containing all the recordings, videos, and screenshots. I'm going to play something for you. I queued up the audio from day 5 where they discussed their plan in explicit detail. Andrew talking about establishing tenant rights despite not paying rent. Tessa discussing moving in and taking over my apartment. Both of them laughing about how I'd be too heartbroken to fight back effectively. Their own voices filled the room, condemning them with their own words. When it finished, Andrew looked sick. That's a legal recording. You can't use that against us in any legal proceeding. Kelsey laughed coldly. Actually, in this state, it's perfectly legal to record in your own home without consent. Every word is admissible as evidence. I leaned forward. Here's what happens now. Andrew, you pack and leave within 2 hours. You sign this document stating you voluntarily vacate and have absolutely no claim to this property. If you refuse, I send these recordings to your employer, your family, and the police. Your boss will love hearing how you plan to commit housing fraud. Andrew's jaw clenched, but he nodded slowly. He knew he'd lost completely. I turned to Tessa, saving the best revenge for last. You, I have special plans for. Tessa looked terrified, mascara running down her face from crying. Jada, please, our friendship means everything. We don't have a friendship, I said coldly. Friends don't sleep with your boyfriend in your bed. Friends don't plot to steal your home. You betrayed me in every way possible. I pulled out my phone and opened social media platforms. You know what you value most, Tessa? Your reputation. Your image as the good girl, the loyal friend, the trustworthy person everyone admires. You've built your entire social identity on being seen as moral and caring. Her eyes widened as she understood where I was going. Don't. Please don't. Here's your choice, I continued. Option 1. I post the recordings publicly. Everyone hears your voice discussing the 8-month affair, planning to take my apartment, laughing about my heartbreak. Your parents, your colleagues, every friend we have in common, they all know exactly who you are in your own words. She started sobbing harder. Option 2, you confess. You call your parents right now on speakerphone and tell them what you did. Then you post a public statement on social media admitting the affair and the betrayal. You tell the truth yourself in detail before I do it for you. That's not fair, Tessa protested weakly. Fair? I laughed harshly. You want to talk about fair after what you did? At least you get to control your own narrative. That's more mercy than you gave me. You have 1 hour to decide. Tessa looked at Andrew desperately, but he was focused on his own survival, already pulling suitcases from the closet. She was alone in facing her consequences. Choose, I said. 1 hour. While Tessa sat frozen in indecision, I supervised Andrew's packing closely. He moved quickly, throwing clothes and belongings into bags. Kelsey followed him with her phone camera recording everything, documenting that he was leaving voluntarily without coercion. I need to take some of the furniture, Andrew said, gesturing to the desk and TV. Those are mine, I bought them. No, I said firmly, pulling out my credit card statements. I bought the desk 2 years ago, here's the receipt. The TV was a gift from my grandmother before she died. You contributed nothing to this household except lies and betrayal. He started to argue, then saw Kelsey recording and my determined expression and backed down. Within 90 minutes, Andrew had 3 suitcases and 2 bags packed with his belongings. I handed him the document Kelsey had prepared the night before. A simple legal statement that he was vacating voluntarily, relinquishing any claim to the property and acknowledging he had no tenant rights. He read it with visible bitterness. What if I refused to sign? I pulled out my phone showing the recording app. Then I send everything to your boss at the design firm. The one where you've been working toward a promotion. I'm sure they'd love to know about your character and your willingness to commit fraud. Andrew's hand shook slightly as he signed the document. When he finished, I took his keys to my apartment. If you come back for any reason, it's trespassing and I'll call the police immediately. Do you understand? He nodded silently, grabbed his bags, and left without looking back or saying another word. Kelsey locked the door behind him, changed the deadbolt, and we high-fived. One betrayer down. Now for the second. Tessa was still on my couch, staring at her phone with red, swollen eyes. Time's up, I said firmly. What's your choice? She looked up, defeated. I'll do it. I'll post the confession and call my parents. Not just any confession, I corrected. A detailed statement. The affair, the timeline, the planning, the betrayal of our 10-year friendship. Make it real and specific. She nodded miserably and started typing on her phone with shaking hands. I watched over her shoulder as she wrote a long post admitting to having an 8-month affair with her best friend's boyfriend, helping plan to take over my apartment, betraying a decade of friendship built on trust. She included an apology, but I made her remove the self-pitying parts where she talked about how guilty she felt. This is about what you did, not about your feelings, I said coldly. Own your actions. When the post was drafted, I made her call her parents first. They need to hear it from you directly before they see it online. On speakerphone, Tessa tearfully confessed everything to her mother and father. Her mother's disappointed silence was devastating. How could you do this to Jada? Her mother said, her voice breaking. We've known her since college. She's been like family to us. We trusted you to be a good friend. Tessa sobbed through apologies, but her mother cut her off. I'm so disappointed in you. I don't even know who you are right now. Her father's angry shouting was almost worse. When the call finally ended, Tessa was shaking. Now post it, I commanded. Tessa's finger hovered over the button. Please don't make me do this. If you don't, I will. And my version will include the audio recordings. She pressed post. Within minutes, comments started flooding in: shock, disappointment, anger from mutual friends. Some people who'd been at that dinner party were conspicuously silent, their own complicity now exposed to scrutiny. Others were vocally disgusted. I watched Tessa's carefully constructed image crumble in real time, her phone buzzing nonstop with messages. I let her sit there for 10 more minutes, watching the social consequences unfold, before I said coldly, now leave. And don't ever contact me again. Tessa stood on shaking legs, gathering her overnight bag. I am sorry, Jada. I know you don't believe me, but I genuinely am sorry. You're sorry you got caught, I replied. There's a difference. You're sorry your reputation is destroyed. You're sorry you're facing consequences. But you're not sorry you did it. You're just sorry it didn't work out the way you planned. She had no response to that truth. She walked to the door, then turned back one last time. What about Andrew? Are you going to post about him publicly too? That's not your concern anymore. Get out. She nodded and left quietly. The door closed behind her, and suddenly my apartment was mine again. Just me and Kelsey in the space that had been violated by betrayal. Kelsey hugged me tight. You did it. They're both gone and you protected your home. I felt exhausted but vindicated. I need to clean everything. Change the sheets, sage the apartment, erase them from my space completely. That afternoon, a locksmith came and changed all the locks. Kelsey and I spent hours cleaning every surface Andrew and Tessa had touched, throwing out linens, scrubbing the apartment until it felt like mine again. While we cleaned, my phone buzzed constantly with messages from friends who'd seen Tessa's post, asking if I was okay, offering support, expressing anger on my behalf. I responded to a few close friends, but ignored most. I was too emotionally drained for sympathy conversations. But I did check Andrew's social media. His accounts had gone silent. Tessa's post had mentioned him by name, and people were connecting the dots quickly. His carefully maintained image was crumbling just as thoroughly as Tessa's, just more quietly. That evening, Kelsey ordered takeout, and we sat in my reclaimed apartment, finally breathing freely. What are you going to do now? She asked. I thought about it carefully. Move forward. This apartment is truly mine now, no one here who doesn't belong. I'm going to focus on my photography business and rebuild my life without their toxicity. My phone rang. It was my mother, who'd heard about everything through family channels. "Sweetheart, are you okay? Why didn't you tell us what was happening?" I explained the whole situation, including the fake vacation and surveillance. My mother was horrified by the betrayal, but proud of how I'd handled it. "You were smart to document everything and protect yourself legally. And you were strong to face them directly." After the call, I felt lighter, validated. Over the next few days, more people reached out. Some friends who'd been at that dinner party started apologizing for not telling me about the affair, admitting they'd suspected but weren't sure. I accepted some apologies and cut off others permanently, depending on their level of complicity. 2 weeks after the confrontation, I started reclaiming my space emotionally, not just physically. I rearranged furniture to erase the memory of how Andrew had it set up. I painted an accent wall in my bedroom a bold teal color I loved, but Andrew had always vetoed. I hung my own photography on the walls, images I'd been too insecure to display when Andrew would make subtle criticisms. Without his undermining comments and Tessa's backhanded compliments, I started seeing my own worth clearly for the first time in years. My photography business actually improved substantially. Word spread about what had happened, not through gossip but through Tessa's own public confession, and people who admired how I'd handled the betrayal started hiring me. "You're strong and professional," one new client said. "Those are exactly the qualities I want in someone documenting my wedding." I threw myself into work, booking 3 weddings and 2 corporate events within a month. I also made new friends through a local photography group, people who had no connection to Andrew or Tessa, who chose me for who I was. Kelsey remained my constant support, checking in daily, helping me process everything. 3 weeks after the confrontation, I was grocery shopping when I saw Tessa in the produce section. She looked terrible, exhausted, thin, like she hadn't been sleeping or eating properly. Our eyes met across the store. She opened her mouth to speak. I turned my cart around and walked away without acknowledging her. She didn't deserve my attention. I ran into Casey, a mutual acquaintance, at the checkout line. She asked if we could grab coffee. "There's a lot you probably don't know about what happened after," she said mysteriously. Casey and I met for coffee the next day, and she filled me in on everything I'd missed. "Tessa lost her job," she said immediately. "Her company said it was downsizing, but everyone knows the real reason. Her boss saw the post and all the drama, and didn't want that kind of chaos affecting the workplace. They found a legal reason to let her go." I felt a flash of satisfaction. "And Andrew?" Casey leaned in conspiratorially. "This is the really good part. Remember how he was being considered for that promotion at his design firm?" I nodded. "Well, someone, and I'm not saying who, but maybe someone with paralegal skills, anonymously sent the recordings to his boss." She looked meaningfully at me. I hadn't sent them, but I had a strong suspicion Kelsey had. I'd thank her later. Andrew didn't get the promotion. In fact, they're reassessing his position entirely. Apparently, his boss said that someone willing to commit housing fraud shows a serious character flaw that reflects poorly on the company. Casey continued, "But there's more. You know that couple who came to the dinner party at your place? Andrew's best friend and his girlfriend." I nodded. "The girlfriend broke up with him. She said if he could watch his best friend betray you and say nothing, even celebrate it, then he wasn't the man she thought he was. It caused this huge domino effect in their whole social circle." I felt vindicated. Actions had consequences, and those who'd enabled the betrayal were learning that silence was complicity. "Also," Casey added, "Andrew and Tessa broke up. Spectacularly. Once everything came out, and they both lost their social standing, they turned on each other. Andrew blamed Tessa for posting the confession. Tessa blamed Andrew for being careless enough to get caught. It got really ugly really fast." I sipped my coffee, absorbing all the information. The revenge had rippled out far beyond what I'd planned, touching everyone who'd been complicit. Casey hesitated, then said carefully, "Andrew's been telling people you entrapped him, that the recordings were illegal and you manipulated the whole situation to make him look bad." I laughed without humor. "Of course he is. He can't accept responsibility, so he rewrites history and makes himself the victim. Most people aren't buying it," Casey assured me quickly. "Everyone read Tessa's confession. The details were too specific to be fake. Andrew just looks more pathetic trying to deny reality." I appreciated the update, but I was genuinely done caring about Andrew's narrative. He was out of my life permanently, and that's what mattered. That same week, I got an unexpected visitor. I opened my door to find Tessa's mother standing there, looking aged and sad. I almost closed the door, but something made me let her in. "I won't take much of your time," she said quietly. "I just wanted to apologize in person for what my daughter did. I love Tessa, but her actions were unforgivable. You were part of our family for 10 years, Jada. You deserved so much better than what she did." Her voice broke. I felt tears prick my eyes unexpectedly. "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know." She hugged me, and I let her, mourning not just the friendship but the extended family I'd lost with Tessa's betrayal. "I hope you know that her father and I taught her better than this. I don't know where we went wrong, but we're devastated by her choices." After she left, I called Kelsey. "Did you send the recordings to Andrew's boss?" She laughed. "Maybe I did. Did it cause problems for him?" "Yes. Thank you for always having my back." "Always," she said firmly. "That's what real family does." For months after the confrontation, I was genuinely thriving. My photography business had grown substantially. I'd booked 6 weddings, multiple corporate events, and had a feature in a local magazine about up-and-coming artists. The article mentioned my resilience and fresh perspective, though it didn't discuss the personal details. I'd started teaching weekend photography workshops from my apartment, turning my pain into purpose by helping others develop their artistic eye. My relationship with Kelsey had deepened profoundly. She'd proven herself to be my true best friend, and we had dinner together twice a week. I'd even started dating again casually, taking my time to trust but remaining open to connection. One evening while editing photos, I got a message request on social media from Andrew. Against my better judgment, curiosity made me open it. "Jada, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know I understand now what I destroyed. You were the best thing in my life, and I threw it away for something shallow that meant nothing in the end. Tessa and I are both miserable and alone now. We did this to ourselves. You were right about everything. I'm genuinely sorry." I read it twice, then deleted it without responding. His apology wasn't for me. It was for him, trying to absolve his guilt and feel better about his choices. I didn't need his apology to heal. I'd already healed by choosing myself, by refusing to be a victim, by taking control of my own story. I never heard from Tessa again directly. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned she'd moved to another city, starting over where no one knew her story. Andrew apparently stayed local, but kept an extremely low profile, his social circle devastated. Their betrayal had cost them everything: their relationship with each other, their reputations, their friends, their professional standing, their comfort. Meanwhile, I'd gained everything that truly mattered: self-respect, genuine friends who proved their loyalty, a thriving creative career, and absolute certainty that I would never again accept less than I deserved. My grandmother's apartment, the one they'd tried to steal, remained my sanctuary. But now it was filled entirely with my own energy, my own light, my own future. I'd taken the worst betrayal of my life and transformed it into my greatest strength. The person I least expected to betray me had been Tessa, not Andrew. I'd suspected my boyfriend might cheat, but I never imagined my best friend of 10 years would be the one in my bed, plotting to take my home. That betrayal cut deepest because I'd trusted her with everything: my secrets, my vulnerabilities, my entire heart. But in exposing her, I'd learned my own power. I didn't need revenge in the traditional sense. I needed truth and justice. And I'd gotten both. The surveillance, the confrontation, the public exposure. It wasn't cruelty. It was accountability. They'd built their affair on lies and planned to steal my inheritance. I simply made sure everyone knew the truth, in their own words. That wasn't revenge. That was justice. And it felt absolutely perfect.